What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my banner review and builds guide for the Valentine Banner featuring Duo Elise, Valentine Leo, Takumi and Hana. I'll be going over the builds that you can run on them and also an in-depth analysis. Before I start, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Honkai Star Rail. So Honkai Star Rail is a free-to-play sci-fi space fantasy RPG game that can be played both on your mobile devices and also on your PC. And this is part of HoYoverse, the makers of Genshin Impact. And this game is just beautifully oozing with the visual treat that is the Astral Express. And it has got the top tier voice acting in 4 languages. And the characterization and the story of this game is pretty vast, and you can explore each world of this universe. And beneath the distinct style of each world, there's still going to be that sci-fi theme which is going to be making the game cohesive while still delivering on the fresh and unique experience. And the gameplay is going to be turn-based with many mechanisms and strategic elements so that you can have a lot of fun with different strategies with its many characters. Right now, Honkai Star Rail is in the closed beta period, so you can check out my pinned comment and the link in the description to check out the game today and prepare for when it releases later on in 2023. And with that said, let's get back to the video. Duo Elise is a staff cavalier with Dusk Dawn staff as her preferred weapon. This does have dazzling staff built into it, and this is a pretty unique staff because this is the first one ever to have minus and special cooldown built into it. Previously, no staff before has got this kind of effect, and this is perfect to go along with her Holy Pressure. So minus and special cooldown makes Holy Pressure into a 2 cooldown special, and then she's able to get +6 attack and speed in the combat, and also the half null follow-up effect, which allows her to bypass any kind of follow-up negation effects, and also get special charges +1 per attack, both on foes' attacks and her own attacks. So this allows her to trigger Holy Pressure on her double, and finally she's able to inflict the flash status on the target and the foes within 2 spaces of the target after the combat. So this weapon is definitely pretty amazing and is built to be used with Holy Pressure, and this is pretty much the reason why Duo Elise is the best user of Holy Pressure in the game, because no other staff in the game can have special charges and have the minus and special cooldown. So she's going to be functioning really well offensively, especially with her offenses of base 43 attack and base 46 speed. And these are just absolutely the best offenses that you can want on a cavalry staff unit, and they're just going to be hitting extremely hard, and they are going to be proving their use in Aether Raids defense and also in Summoner Duels with this kind of offensive stat spread. And Duo Elise is going to be the premium healer who's going to be really offensive in nature, especially with her special Holy Pressure. So this is a 3 cooldown Inheritable special which could be given to any kind of healer, but on Elise, because of her Dusk Dawn staff, this does become a 2 cooldown special. And with Holy Pressure, its cooldown isn't going to be going down with the assist skills, and it does boost damage based on 45% of foes' resistance. And it does inflict gravity on target and foes adjacent to target after the combat if it triggered. So this is honestly a pretty nice special for Elise, and for other healers this is going to be their first damaging special, but because it's a 3 cooldown special, it's going to be a bit awkward for them because there isn't really any kind of arcane staff as of making this video, and it's pretty hard for healers to get these special charges unless they're run with some support like with Duo Thor, or they're given special charges status effect from Na or Fallen Ninian. So it is going to be a bit hard for the other healers, but Duo Elise is going to be having no trouble whatsoever because she does have the special charges from her staff. So she's going to be able to trigger this easily and also inflict the gravity status effect along with the flash status effect from her weapon. So she's going to be a pretty amazing unit to be used on a cavalry team in Aether Raids defense. And then she has got attack speed catch 4 and also a new skill in Poetic Justice. So this is basically Wrathful Staff 4 but with a different name, and it does have Wrathful Staff effect built into it. It also inflicts -4 speed on the foe during the combat, so this is going to be really helpful for Duo Elise so that she can double and then trigger Holy Pressure on her second hit. And it also deals true damage based on 15% of foes' attack stat. So this is going to be a pretty nice upgrade for any kind of healer because you are going to be able to get the speed debuff, which is really good, and then being able to do true damage is going to be helping you offensively. And this is no different for Elise herself, who is going to be not only having easy access to Holy Pressure and the special charges from her weapon, but can also get true damage out of Poetic Justice and be even more offensive with her stat line. Finally, Duo Elise does have her Duo button, which does grant dominant status effect to herself and the allies within 2 spaces, and it does inflict -7 defense and resistance debuff on the foes in 3 rows or 3 columns, so its range is definitely much better than Duo Mikaya's, and dominance is basically going to be giving you the true damage based on the debuffs on the foe. So that is amazing status effect to be given to other allies, especially for something like Summoner Duels, where it's a lot easier to use the Duo button, and it's not going to be as restrictive as Aether Raids offense, and you're also going to be having a ton of fun with this Duo button in the in-game content because you're going to be able to easily beat the maps with the dominance effect and the true damage, and she's also going to be able to score 200 BST with the dual effect built into this Duo skill. So overall, Duo Elise is going to be functioning as a premier staff unit with her offenses, with her preferred staff, and she also brings some nice goodies to the healers in terms of Holy Pressure and also Poetic Justice. Now, Poetic Justice is definitely going to be an upgrade for, any kind of healer, but Holy Pressure is going to be a lot harder to work with for a lot of these staff units, and it is not really going to be changing anything for them. Elise is going to be the best user of it, like I said, but still it's pretty nice to have a damaging special finally on your favorite healer merch project, and I've already given this to my Mercedes, as you guys know, so it's pretty much to spoil your favorite healer merch projects with the damaging special finally, and if it's possible, you should be trying to give some kind of support to your healer in form of running Time Pulse if they're infantry, or giving them the support of Thor or Duo Thor with the Ward Breaker, or giving them the special charges status effect from Na, for example, so that they can trigger Holy Pressure a lot easily. And I hope that at some point we do get Arcane Staff, which does have the -1 special cooldown built into it, and it can hopefully make it a lot easier for the other healers to make use out of Holy Pressure. So she's going to be functioning really well as a unit and also as a fodder, pretty much one of the best healers in the game, who is not only going to be really unique with Dust on Staff and Aether Raids defense, and in Summoner Duels she's also going to be having utility with her Duo button, but she's also going to be really good when it comes to the fodder, especially if you have a +10 merge healer that you want to give the premium skills to. Elise already comes with her full kit, so there's really not much you have to change. You can just run Blade Session Sacred Seal, and that is going to be it. So this kind of Elise could be used in Aether Raids defense in Summoner Duel, and you don't really need to invest anything into her. But if you want to swap out Odd Recovery for something else, then Joint Drive Speed is definitely going to be helpful, because you want to stack up speed on Elise so that she can double most amount of opponents and then trigger Holy Pressure on her double. So this is going to be helpful if you don't really want Odd Recovery, and if you do end up plus and merging her, then she's going to be the highest scoring healer present in the game. But keep in mind that there's no 400 SP assist skill for healers, so Return is only going to be scoring 300 SP compared to the Dual Rally Plus skills or Harsh Command Plus, which does score 400 SP. Holy Pressure is a 500 SP special, which is good for the healers, but still they don't really have a high scoring assist as of yet, and this is pretty much going to be the build that you can run. And Attack Speed Menace could be run on her slot C because you're going to be able to use the Duo button a lot easily in the arena matches, so you can basically get debuffs on all stats by using her Duo skill and with her Menace skill. And that is going to be going really well with the dominant status that she can provide to herself and also to the allies. Valentine Leo is a Green Bow Cavalier this time, and he's definitely a sleeper good unit out of this banner, and definitely the best he has ever been, and a big reason for that is definitely his preferred weapon, Dust Bloom Bow. So this weapon gives him -1 special cooldown, and instead of player phase or enemy phase, he's able to inflict the -7 defense and resistance debuff on foes, as well as the gravity status on the foes in the Cardinal Direction who have less resistance than him. So this actually triggers in both player phase and enemy phase, kind of like Gregor's weapon, and that is amazing because he can actually gravity like 2 lanes, and that is going to be making him a solid unit in Aether Raids offense, especially against many of the cav lines. So this is pretty much the reason why Leo is going to be a really unique unit, because of having this kind of gravity ploy built into his weapon, and he can also target like 2 lanes, which is absolutely amazing. He's also able to get +5 to all of his stats with this weapon, and then he's going to be getting effects depending on his resistance minus foe's resistance, and if he has got 1 or more resistance than the foe, then he's going to be able to get the guaranteed follow-up attack. If he has got 4 or more resistance, then he gets 20% true damage based on his resistance. And finally, if he has got 7 or more resistance, and if he initiates combat, he gets the offensive half of null follow-up, which allows him to bypass any kind of follow-up negation effects, and he also reduces damage from foe's first attack by 30%. So this weapon is definitely pretty stacked, and the debuff potential and the gravity of this weapon does give him some amazing utility. It also helps him in the combat because he's not really all that fast, so getting the guaranteed follow-up attack is actually pretty nice. And then on top of that, the offensive half of null follow-up in his player phase. And he is going to be pretty bulky on the magical side with that base 45 resistance. So the 30% damage reduction can definitely help him in the magical matchups, and especially in the physical matchups where he does not really have that much of a physical bulk. And the true damage is going to be going really well with his high base 45 attack, which also has a super boon. So being able to get the true damage out of the main stat, which he's going to be stacking up, is going to be really amazing. So keep in mind that the resistance check for the gravity and the defense and resistance debuff is going to be visible. So even though he comes with remote mirror, which is a slot A skill, ultimately you are going to be running him with like still water if you're going to be trying to optimize, because you need the visible resistance to meet the visible resistance check out of his weapon. So remote mirror is basically the resistance variant of remote sparrow, and this does give you +7, and this does give you +7 attack and +10 resistance in the player phase, and reduces damage from foe's first attack by 30%. And he also has attack defense fortress in his kit, so the counter mobility is definitely going to be pretty helpful. So overall, Valentine Leo is going to be a pretty solid unit to be used on Aether Raids offense against many of the Emblem Cav lines, and he's also going to be useful in Summoner Duels because of his gravity effect. It is definitely going to be a lot more map dependent in Summoner Duels, where depending on the map, he's going to be either very useful or he's not really going to be that useful. So he's going to be a really interesting unit for sure, and the way that he can use them in Aether Raids offense for hit and run or for just healing with the Cav lines is definitely pretty amazing, because he can shut down 2 lanes and just gravity them, which is really good, especially for having trouble with the new recent Emblem Cav lines and everything like that. He's definitely going to be needing some investment if you're going to be optimizing him for the gravity ploy that he gets out of his weapon and the debuffs and overall his utility. But if you're just going to be using him with his base kit, then you can run Savage Blow in his slot C, which is going to be a nice budget skill. And you can just run Fury 3 because it does increase his visible resistance, which is really helpful in triggering the effect of Dusk Bloom Bow. He can also be optimized by running Still Water in the slot A, like I said, and Phantom Resistance as a Sacred Seal. And Joint Drive Attack is going to be a pretty nice slot C skill because he's mainly going to be supporting his allies by running this build, and you're going to be optimizing on that. So this could be used in Aether Raids offense or in Summoner Duels. So there he can definitely function with his gravity effect and help your team, and he's definitely going to be an interesting unit. And if you finally want to invest into him heavily, then you can definitely go with Attack Smoke 4 for his slot C, because he already gets the guaranteed follow-up attack from his weapon and also the half version of null follow-up. So by running Attack Smoke 4 and getting the follow-up negation, you're essentially going to be having the Omni Breaker effect, and Deadeye can definitely be used on him because he does have the high attack stat and also has minus on special cooldown. So Deadeye is a 2 cooldown special, and he's definitely going to be able to do quite a bit of damage with that. So this is going to be the invested Leo build that he can run, and I definitely think that if you're trying to optimize him and you're wanting to use him to the best of his abilities, then Still Water is basically going to be the best slot A skill that he could run on him, because it does give him attack and resistance without compromising his attack, kind of like what Fortress Resistance does, and it does reduce his defense, but that is ultimately fine because you want to stack up the visible resistance to really trigger his weapon against the most amount of opponents that he can. So it is kind of similar in the playstyle to Aether in that regard, where she uses Future Focused and pretty much uses that, whereas Leo is going to be using his weapon and is going to be using the visible resistance check to trigger those effects. Valentine Takumi is a blue mage armor this time, and he's the fastest armor unit with base 46 speed, and he's going to be functioning as a pretty nice speedy far safe tank with his weapon Dawn Sweet Box. So this gives him minus on special cooldown, and in start of combat, if he's at or above 25% HP, then he can get +5 to all of his stats, and he also inflicts -4 attack and speed debuff on the foe, and he can get more attack and speed debuff on the foe depending on 3 times the number of allies in 2 spaces of him whose visible attack stat is at or above his attack -4. So this can go all the way up to -6 attack and speed debuff, and he's going to be able to heavily debuff the opponents with this. And this effect is basically a reference to his personal skill Competitive in Fire Emblem Fates. So he's going to be able to basically get a lot of attack and speed debuff on the opponent and function as a speedy far safe tank. That's not all, he gets even more effects depending on his speed stat minus foe speed stat. So if his speed stat is at or above -4, which basically means that if he's slower than the opponent, then even then he gets 30% damage reduction from foe's first attack. And if he's faster than the foe or is at the same speed as the foe, then he can get 7 HP healing per attack in the combat. And finally, if he has got 4 or more speed than the opponent, and if the opponent has a damaging special, and if the opponent is red, then he's able to inflict +1 special cooldown on foe before foe's first attack in the combat. So this is basically the special decharging that we have seen on Duo Duma, and of course it got introduced with Brave Tiki. So this is only going to be there for him against the red opponents, which does make him a bit Deadeye proof from Duo Chrom, which is definitely a pretty nice competitive matchup advantage that he has got. So he's not going to be getting nuked by pre-charged Deadeye of Duo Chrom at the very least. And with being this kind of fast mage armor, he's going to be giving the other fast nukes a tough time because he's going to be really hard to double, especially when he's going to be debuffing you for this much speed with his weapon. And then he's going to be getting the damage reduction and, extra stats in combat. So this weapon is definitely pretty helpful for him, especially against the ranged matchups. And he is going to be facing competition when it comes to being a far safe tank for sure. But he is definitely one of the better range far safe tanks in my opinion. Kind of like Winter Marth, because range armor units cannot really get access to Hardy Fighter, which definitely limits their potential and can limit their defensive capabilities. But here we do have Winter Marth, who has speed preempt to basically bypass the Hardy Fighter absence. And then for Takumi, we do have the decharging, which does make it a bit better for him. So he doesn't really need Hardy Fighter to tank a Duo Chrom with Deadeye at the very least, and he can definitely handle the red threats a lot better. But because he is going to be focused so much on the speed stat and his offenses, he's not going to be having the highest draw bulk, so he is going to be kind of susceptible to the brave attacks or against Brattle Catcher teams or Winter Cordelia teams, so you definitely have to watch out for that. So overall, he can function as a pretty nice blue far safe tank who's going to be pretty fast, and he can function in Aether Raids offense as a safe tank. And he can also function in Summoner Duels S, because if your opponent does not really have too many green nukes or AoE nukes or, other kinds of nukes, then he's going to be doing pretty fantastic job against the blue nukes and the red nukes. And he is going to be fast, so if they're going to be having something like Legendary Veronica, then he's going to be having a good matchup against that. And of course, Duo Chrom, of course, where he specifically gets the decharging against the red opponents. Takumi does come with the attack speed variant of Far Save, which is definitely pretty helpful because he depends on his speed check to get a lot of the effects out of his weapon. So he definitely appreciates this, and you just need to run a Form Sacred Seal on him because he is going to be getting near his allies pretty easily because of being a safe tank. So you can make use of the Savvy Fighter and stack up the damage reduction with his weapon, and also get the full null follow-up, which is always going to be helpful for a fast unit. And with the Form Sacred Seal, you want to stack up even more speed. And like I said, he could be used in Summoner Duels S, where he could be used against a lot of the Duo Chrom and Legendary Veronica teams. But definitely watch out for the Brattle Catria and Winter Cordelia teams, because he is going to be weak to those brave hits. And that's why Deflect Missile can actually help you against those kinds of team compositions. And it could be an option that he can run. And you ideally want to run a 2 cooldown special like Ruptured Sky or Glimmer or Moonbow, so that you can immediately retarget back to the threats with a special. So you just want to run this kind of build, and you still want to get the guard effect, because if a Chrom has got the Brattle Catria effect, then you need to make sure that even if you decharge him, he's not going to be triggering Deadeye on his brave hit. So that's why his stance is still going to be a pretty good option here just for the guard effect. And then Savvy Fighter is going to be giving you the full null follow-up, which is going to be helpful against many of the slower threats which are going to be having auto double. But a lot of Spring Sonias, a lot of Duo Thors are going to be just smoking him with the AoE special, so you definitely have to watch out for that. And you can also run him with Goto actually, so that he can have the damage reduction against the AoE specials, which are definitely going to be one of the shortcomings of Takumi as a far safe tank. And if you're going to be investing heavily into him and you want to run something different than Savvy Fighter and his basic build, then you can run Attack Speed Unity or even Attack Speed Bond 4 from the Divine Codes and run him with Special Fighter 4. So you're going to be trading Null Follow-Up and the damage reduction from Savvy Fighter for basically having special cooldown, the guard effect, and being able to heal up HP with Special Fighter 4. and by triggering Luna on the retaliation. So you're going to be trading the effects of Savvy Fighter for this, and this is going to be the other option if you don't really want to run Savvy Fighter and you just want to get the effects out of Special Fighter 4 and still, you know, get the guard effect out of it and also prevent the debuffs from slowing him down, because his speed stat is definitely going to be pretty valuable with this kind of weapon. The final unit from this banner is going to be Valentine Hana, and she's a sword armor this time. She has got Petalfall Blade Plus, which does give her +5 attack and speed, and if she's got more speed than the opponent, then she can get null follow-up, the full null follow-up by the way, and +5 true damage. So this is an amazing inheritable weapon right behind the Arcane Elutnir, and honestly this is going to be a pretty nice weapon to be given to any kind of fast unit to get that full null follow-up so that they can free up their slot B skill from running null follow-up as a skill and also as a sacred seal. And for Hana, this is also really good because she's pretty fast with that base 46 speed and base 42 attack. She does have Special Fighter 3 and Armored Stride, but it's a little too late because Assault Troop is a lot better if you want to have the extra movement, and Special Fighter is also pretty nice if you're especially trying to get the version 4 of that from Winter Black Knight along with another premium skill. So her fodder is definitely going to be pretty nice, especially with Special Fighter and Petalfall Blade Plus, and her stats are going to be that of a speedy armor who can function with near save, and she's going to be having 196 BST, so she can easily be compared to another fast sword armor who's also a 4-star focus just like Hana, and that is going to be Winter Manuela. So Hana trades away some of the resistance and HP for having a bit better attack and also being a bit fast while also having a bit more defense. So stat wise she is going to be a bit better than Winter Manuela, especially for just near safe tanking where you do need the physical bulk, and having more speed is always going to be a lot better here, and also the extra attack is never really too bad. So she's going to be pretty competitive, and she's going to be a nice 4-star focus merge project if you really like her. So if you want to run her on a budget, then you can just run her with double form skills, and this is still going to be an option even though you're going to be having Armored Stride, because you can get the extra speed out of this, and that is really helpful for Hana. And you can easily get speed defense form from Russia, who is available at 4-star. So this is going to be the budget build, but if you're going to be investing a bit more into her, then definitely some expensive skills like Attack Speed Bond 4 from the Divine Codes, having the Near Save skill, and Special Fighter 4 is going to be the way to go. So she already has the full null follow-up from her weapon, so that's why Savvy Fighter is going to be a bit redundant. So you can just get Special Fighter 4 for its guard effect, for its special charges, and also for its healing. And you can try and protect her from the speed debuffs by running Attack Speed Bond 4. So that is going to be really helpful, and basically you're going to be building her up similar to how a Winter Manuela is going to be built up. And I do have a plus in Winter Manuela, so you're basically going to be stacking up speed on her, and you're going to be making her function as a near safe tank. And being a fast near safe unit is definitely pretty amazing because you can take on the faster threats, which are melee, and you can also stop the auto follow-up attacks of many of the slower enemies with the full null follow-up of Petalfall Blade Plus. But still, even though Petalfall Blade does have the full null follow-up, it doesn't really have minus and special cooldown like Arcane Elutnir. So that could be run so that you can retaliate back with bonfires, and it also provides you with the guard effect. So now that we do not have full null follow-up in Arcane Elutnir, you can just run Savvy Fighter in the slot B to also get damage reduction, and you can also run Attack Speed Unity, which is going to be a bit more expensive skill than Attack Speed Bond 4, and Attack Speed Near Save is going to be optimal here as we're trying to stack up as much speed as we can. So honestly, Petalfall Blade and Arcane Elutnir are both pretty nice weapons, but if you want the minus one special cooldown, then Arcane Elutnir is going to be nice, and it's especially going to be helpful if you're trying to run Pavis. So you can run a Hardy Fighter and Pavis and make her a pretty annoying unit for many of the melee nukes to get past. So the damage reduction from Pavis and Hardy Fighter is going to be really good, and you can get Speed Defense Bond 4 from the Divine Codes on Astrid. So this is going to be protecting you from the defense and speed debuffs, and again you can just run Attack Speed Near Save to be optimal, and this is going to be possible because of the minus one special cooldown, and the guard effect from Arcane Elutnir is also pretty nice. You can also run her as a far safe tank, but I wouldn't really recommend it over the near safe build because the range matchups are pretty insane, and Hana doesn't really have the highest resistance. So she could run a resistance boon if you're going to be spending a Florette on her, and especially running her as a far safe tank. So this build could be run with Distant Dart and having Hardy Fighter with Aegis. Party Fighter with Aegis is definitely going to be helping you a lot for tanking many of the ranged matchups, especially the pre-charged Deadeyes, Lethalities, and all of that. So being a fast armor, this is going to be really helpful. And she could also be run in Arena as a 200 BST armor unit. And there she's going to be needing a super boon to reach the 200 BST. So she's still going to be a one movement armor unit, which is still going to be pretty painful in Arena. But now with the legendary bonus effect, we can still let one unit die and still get the full points. So with the Arena changes, having this kind of high BST unit is definitely going to be pretty nice, like scoring wise. So you could run her with this kind of build so that she can score 200 BST. Hope you all enjoyed this banner review. If you did, then make sure to leave a like and a comment, helps me tremendously. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Wrathful Staff against Mystic Boost. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.